creative space. Today we're going to be looking at how to build a hut, a round hut in particular, which is staged and has mud walls. So let's get right into the video. Okay, so to start us off, we're going to look at this quote by Mr. Kenneth Sharp, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Westprop Holdings in Zimbabwe. He says, "We must be proud of who we are and where we come from. We are a great nation," meaning Zimbabwe, "and we can take the world's best practices and implement them." So what we're basically getting from this is, with this particular project that we are having in this video, that we're going to concentrate on in this video, we normally have traditional methods associated with constructing this mud house or this kind of a round hut. But it will be good for us to implement modern technology, modern methods of construction in this kind of a project. So let's try and see how best we can tackle this project using modern technology. We'll look at that at the end of the video, but first of all we're going to try and look at the traditional methods, and then we get to see how best we can upgrade those methods to enable us to implement the modern technology that is being talked of here. Alright, so first of all, there needs to be an approval of the project and also its documents. So and also to acquire the site. But normally this kind of structure is built on a site that already exists or that is already owned by someone. So they just need maybe an extra facility for storage and maybe or to serve any other purpose. So you can have a king or a chief in the village who can then approve that you can construct this structure, or you can also have local authorities in terms of local government, city councils, town councils, rural district councils, and the like, who can approve documents. Those ones need those professional documents to also see how you have planned out the project and how you're going to execute it. How is it going to look like? Does it serve the purpose that it is supposed to serve? And also because of the zoning that they would have done, we'll look at zoning in other videos, but zoning basically means the partitioning of the different parts of the land that is within the jurisdiction of the local authority or the local council. So they need to see if such a structure is suitable for that kind of a zone. Maybe it's a residential, commercial, industrial. I think if I say those terms, it becomes clearer now. So we need to see if it is suitable for such a place, and that's where this approval is needed. And then we also look at the environmental impact. We'll look at safety, health, and environment later on in the video. There needs to be that. But in this pre-construction stage, we'll be using certain chemicals, for example, when we are now dealing with insects that might affect our buildings in terms of infestation from the foundation. So we need to ensure that those insects don't affect our building, especially in the early stages of our project. So we need to make sure that we deal with that before we start construction. And also we need to search for the queen, especially with termites and ants, so that the breeding is stopped. But of course, when we now look at the moral aspect of it, it does not look very good. It won't be good to the animals. We are now disturbing their ecology, we are disturbing their habitation, we are disturbing the basic needs, especially shelter of these insects, and their privacy as well is being disturbed. So it's a shame that we have that as the downside of construction, but construction has to happen. It's a good thing that we also have shelter as human beings, although it's going to cost the shelter of these insects. But it would be good if maybe we can find some other places to put them, but unfortunately that's not the case. But we just try to make sure that we displace them in a more reasonable way that does not affect them in terms of their own health and their own safety, so that they get to migrate in a better way. So we need to also look at that. Specialists have to be involved in that process. And then also the workers on site need PPE. So any procurement of PPE needs to be done prior to the construction, so that when they start working on the project, they have their PPE, and as well whatever other equipment is needed has to be procured on time before the construction, especially for the early stages. And also, if we need to work with, for example, concrete, in this case we're not going to do that except for a certain part. We'll discuss that as we move on to foundations, but for example, concrete, it needs to be procured according to the timeline, strictly according to when you need to use it, so that it comes properly, it comes on site. I think you have seen vehicles that have some rotating cylinders at the back of them, big trucks. Those are the ones that try and ensure that the concrete mixture, when it is being transported, that the concrete mixture is homogeneous or it's uniform, so that it arrives on site in good condition. So those are the other things that you need to look into as you start your project. But this one is a fairly easy project. We don't need much of that. So let's dive into it. We should not take long to construct this in this video. So these are the proposed functional requirements that we are going to be looking at as we move on with the video. So we need to ensure that all these functional requirements are achieved. This will ensure that our structure serves its purpose. That's basically the idea. We have to make sure that this hut serves its purpose for the inhabitants or occupants who are going to use this hut. So if there's anything that's missing, we'll look at that as we move on with the video. But that's primarily what we need to achieve from the foundation to roof level. We need to ensure that all these things are achieved. Okay, so the first stage is after site preparation. Now we're doing the construction. We now look at the foundation. So with the foundation, we have removed the topsoil. It's just a procedure that is normally done in construction, just to ensure that we replace the ground on which we are going to be stepping on inside the building with something that is well compacted and something that is firm, so that we avoid weight that or we avoid the effect of weight which might collapse the foundation or the surface on which we are stepping on, so that it might become uneven and the like. So when we put proper material that we know will be well compacted and firm, we won't have some sloppy surface on the floor. So that's what we're trying to achieve as well. So remove the already existing soil, maybe around 150 millimeters, and then from there we then dig some holes around the plinth area where our round hut is going to be. So we just put some holes. We need to also ensure that the radius or diameter of those holes is similar to the one of the poles that we're going to put in there, because these poles are going to act as columns, as you can see. If you need to put concrete at the bottom, you can, but that is unnecessary actually. What is actually needed is that the part which gets into especially the part that gets into the ground of the pole needs to be cured well, and the entire pole needs to be cured well, but that part that enters the ground, it needs to be coated with some oil. There's a special kind of oil. Some people use used oil, but from mechanical appliances, but that oil that we're talking about, it prevents water from the underground from seeping through the poles, the wooden poles, because they're coming from trees, and would encourage maybe hardwood or indigenous trees, especially in Africa, because they have better properties in terms of durability. Remember, one of the requirements was durability. We're trying to also achieve that in terms of that, and also the first one was structural integrity. So we need to ensure that also the structural integrity is proper, and that requires those poles to be very strong and also not to be weakened by water and rotting, and also by the insects that I was talking about earlier on. So we need to also prepare that, and I think the rest is self-explanatory, except for the NGL. I think the NGL part, that's the natural ground level. NGL, that's what it stands for. So that's where you are stepping on. That's the ground, the surface where you're stepping on. So as you can see, those two women who are cooking, they are on top of the natural ground level. So from there, that's when we have the height of the building from the ground up. And I think that's basically it. The rest you can read and understand. Okay, I'm just thinking about this right now. That coating of oil that I was talking about, um, maybe you could also start by putting um, some DPM kind of material into the hole, and then you put your paw in the hole so that maybe you put extra security from the insects, and also to avoid any seeping through of any water. Maybe there's a certain very small area which was not covered by that oil, and that could be a very problematic weakness, that weak point where water can get in and unfortunately destroy or weaken our pole. So we need to also guard against that. Then basically this stage we're now looking at the frame or the skeletal structure. I would just call it the skeletal structure, but it's basically like a frame structure. As you can see, we have the space for the door, the space for the window. Those are the openings, and these openings in construction have to also let in light and ventilation. Those are some of the requirements that we had. If you still remember the requirements, the functions, the functionality, we need to also have the lighting and ventilation. It comes through these two openings. So of course we then have doors and windows to close them, but it enters through those. And then and by the way, we can use either wooden doors or metal doors to cover that, and also windows. Usually in the past they didn't have glass, so it had to be either metal, maybe from the blacksmith, and maybe wood from, is it the lumberjack who does with the wood? I'm not sure. I've forgotten the word. But that's basically how we then cover those. But during the day, you need to open the two so that daylight gets in. And then during the night, maybe you can have wood with fire to act as a candlestick. I'm trying to think of what used to be used in the past, before the candle was invented. So we have columns, which are the main poles that we have, and then the horizontal members that are a bit thick. Those are the beams. If you look right at the top, there is that beam that's there. I think you have heard of a ring beam, but these ones we're using the branches maybe of this hardwood, so they won't come as a circular circle in terms of how they appear. They will just be coming in segments, so you have to join the two or three or four or the like. And also with the branches that are in between the columns that are vertical, those are the mullions. And then we have the transoms which run perpendicular, or in the, not perpendicular to the beam, but perpendicular to the column and the transom, and the mullion rather. The mullion is the vertical, and then the transom is the horizontal. Usually we use those terms by the window there, but also with these smaller framed structures we can have that. But this one's it's not really like a framed structure per se, but you can get the idea from that when we now look at those smaller branches in between the columns. And how do we tie this? How do we join these members together? We can use reeds. So we just tear off strings, like from the backs of the reeds or from the backs of the trees. Do we call them backs? Okay, whatever outer layer of the reeds, yeah, we just tear off the strings, and then those are the ones we use to tie there. And then from the backs, I know for the Shonas, they know it's kusura gavi, the bark of the tree. You just have to, it's like also tearing off, but you'll be creating strings so that you can tie these members. I think from the diagram you can already visualize how it will come out as and what the idea is. And as you can see, we have the natural ground level, then we have the earth material, which is basically the ground soil. Yes, and the bottom of the excavated holes, we're just saying that's the level at the bottom there. And I think the rest you can understand as we move on. Okay, here I have nothing much to say except that we have the first coat and the second coat of our kind of plastering, but we're using clay, and also some kind of mud that we use for the final coating, usually to be like dark or black, but the first one is red clay. That's the one that usually bonds well with materials. and also with itself. So we need to ensure that. But you're going to see that when we now look at the fourth industrial revolution, we have some machines that are now able to do 3D printing that can enable us to quicken the process of applying this clay so that we reduce the time of the setting of this mud. Because when we prolong that time and we are applying with hands, like what most people do in the rural areas, or what people used to do in the past, applying with hands will give more time for defects to take place. But when you cut down the time and you apply the whole building at once in a short space of time, it gives time for the earlier application to kind of match with the final application, if you get the sense, so that we don't have differences in application, and also maybe differences in the uniformity of the bonding between the earlier application and the final application of the coating. So that's basically the problem that we need to solve, but that's basically human error. So 3D printing will then avoid that, but we're going to look at that as we look at the implementation of the modern technology in the construction industry. But here we are focusing on the heart. Normally this is applied using hands, and people do it at the same time. Maybe you can have a couple of people doing it at the same time. So that's the traditional way of solving the problem. Instead of having one person doing it, which will then allow for more chances of defects, you then have many people to do it at once. But the way they apply also can also differ, because yeah, it's basically human error. But the idea is the functionality. Remember that the basic functions that we need to have for the building is we need to be able to also maintain that building. The building has to allow us, that hut has to allow us to maintain it, or to maintain the services within it. For example, lighting, if we have a light bulb, if we have maybe HVAC, heating, ventilation and air conditioning systems, we need to also maintain those. So we need to have access to those services. So the building has to, as part of the functions, the building also has to allow us to do those things, to have access to those. So we then have to also look into the defects and how best we can solve that. But that's basically the idea. The rest you can read and understand. So just a little fact. Usually with looking for this soil that is used in the clay and the mud and the like, that is used in this construction process, usually men were the ones who would dig up the soil, and maybe the mud if it's in a wet area, and then women would then take that mud or soil. If it's soil, they'll then go and make the mud on site. But they would, or maybe other boys would then come and carry and deliver on site, and then the women would then apply on the building. So it was a teamwork effort, while the men are digging and the women are applying on the house, on the hut. But also when it then came to the designing, usually women are the ones who would go and look for the different soil that has different colors, soil that has different colors. So there were certain places in the area that women would look for, or rather would go to look for the different kinds of colors and soils that they have to look for. And maybe, for example, red would then come from maybe blood of animals. After slaughtering an animal, maybe they'll take the blood and do some adjustments in terms of the thickness and whatever other additives they'll put in the blood to enable it to be able to adhere to the wall. And then maybe you can have other soil, especially in areas where minerals are found. You might have a bit of some colored soil, different colors. So you just take the different colors and you can then design your house. And I still believe women still love their interior designs and their different houses, interior design and decor, and also landscaping and the like. So that was what women used to do in order to beautify the house, and also to just ensure that the house is intact in terms of the construction. And then other men would also help in terms of applying the plastering and filling up the spaces within the wooden members or the timber members. And then what else is left? We have coats. Yeah, so we have the final coat of the plaster, and then we have basically the final coat of the mud.
I'm saying plaster just to use some terminology in the construction, but it's basically just mud. Yes, soil and water, and then you mix. But if you want to enhance the strength of the bonding nature of that material, of the earth material or the mud, you then add some cement. Cement helps with the bonding element of the mortar or of the earth material. That's why you find that in mortar and concrete, you have the use of cement. So it's a bonding agent. Um, I think that's basically it for the painting. The rest you can read and understand. Um, but the designs, I think you can see it's a Zimbabwean themed design and also a Shumbafo themed design with the zebras. We are celebrating our 9th anniversary, and we are having the zebra as the zebra pattern, the the one with the various with the varying white and black stripes. So that's the theme design. So yeah, we are very proud of that achievement of the 9th anniversary. Anyways, let's move on. Okay, and then the flooring, I think, yeah, we can already understand what's happening. We have the topsoil, that red part, that's the topsoil part, and then we have the gray part, which is the flooring. Okay, one material that could be used is cow dung. For those who don't know, and especially in Southern Africa, cow dung is very common in terms of applying on top of the ground where you have your where you can have your screed, for example. So cow dung can be used because of it can be you can smoothen it so that it can be smooth. Probably not like screed, but yeah, it kind of also gets a smooth surface. And then you can be applying polish, floor polish, just to avoid the smell and also to give it a nice finish. But you can also put screed if you are able to. But we're looking at a rural setup as well. But with the modern technology that we have, screed will be another good idea, which is more sustainable as well. Because I think with the cow dung, you need to then maintain the maintenance is very frequent compared to the one with screed. Screed is a bit more sustainable and durable. Remember the functional requirements. And also, just to add on, this cow dung is applied by hand. For those who are wondering how it is applied, you actually apply it with your hand. And in some cases, women were the ones who would apply that because they were the ones responsible for the interior design of the hut. So yeah, they would apply it, but also with the help of boys as well. But mostly women were the ones who were responsible for the interior design. They had a better taste of designing and beautifying in the environment compared to men. But yeah, that's a topic for another day. That's a debate for another day. But anyway, that's how the culture was like. Cow dung was not as disgusting as what people would have to perceive in this modern day and age. That was the flooring of the type. Now we can use grid, as I said, and other types of flooring, tiles and carpet and the like. But at the time, it was cow dung. Okay, I think this is a well detailed label diagram. I don't think I have to explain anything. Maybe the coats of the walls, please don't mind that. It's just showing one thick line, but it's representing both the plaster and the painting for both the interior and the exterior. Then we have the roof covering, and we have the roof members, the rafters and the joists and the like. That's also there. Ceiling brandering, for example, it's important when you're putting a ceiling, but in rural setups, in the most cases, there's no ceiling because the roof covering itself, thatch, it is good at regulating temperatures, especially in the hot climate. It cools down the interior temperature inside the room temperature. And also, if you want to regulate the temperature, you can put a certain sheet or membrane that covers the rafters part, and then you put your thatch on top. But you then have to the problem now with that is you need to then weave with the proper string these reeds and gavi, that's the bark that's being I don't know what kusura would be in English, but maybe just pulling off strings from the bark of the tree. Yeah, I think that's how best I can describe it. But that's basically what you'd use to tie those the rafters, or basically the roof members, to the thatch. But if you're going to put maybe fire resistant, like for example the functional requirements, we had fire resistance as well, and also thermal insulation. So you can put we have what we call allocution. It is also good for the thermal insulation. But also if you need fire resistance, you need a membrane which is like for example that blanket which is fire resistant, that fire blanket that can extinguish the fire. For example, if the thatch catches fire, we don't want the things. For example, if we are storing something in the hut, we don't want our property to then be engulfed in flames from above, from the thatch. So we need to be able to extinguish the fire before it reaches the property inside the hut. We need to save the property inside the hut. So even the walls need to be fire resistant as well. The openings, the windows and the doors need to be able to be fire resistant as well. And when they're open for air circulation, ventilation, and the lighting properties, natural light, letting natural light in, we also need to ensure that we don't allow. But unfortunately, because they will be open, we might have smoke getting in, and the different stages of fire. You can have smoke and then you can have the flames later on. If there's heat, smoke and the fuel, then you can have your flames and fire will be in full force. So yeah, you need to ensure that those things don't come together inside or they don't meet inside the hut, because you need oxygen inside the hut, and that's another fueling factor of fire. Yeah, so that requires a lot of planning on how you're going to avoid such problems. But some of these dangers, they will come without you realizing that they were inevitable. So it requires a master builder who is professional, and also other technical professionals who can come in and advise on the best ways to avoid such extreme. Well, with the extremes, unfortunately, for example, with the force majeure, it's a bit of a difficult one. For example, if you have a cyclone, or if you have a hurricane, if you have a tsunami and it destroys the hut, unfortunately, that's an earthquake can also destroy. So you might not be able to save the hut. But that's basically the roofing part. I don't intend this video to be very long, but it's very good for it to be informative. So from here, I think we're now done with the construction part of the hut. Fairly simple. If you compare it with the first video that we did of constructing a house, a small one-room house, you can see the difference. This one is a bit shorter, it's a bit easier, but that one, that first video, it requires, I'll try and see if we can put it, if we can link the video to this one on YouTube for our YouTube viewers, and maybe on other platforms. If we decide to have other platforms, then we can also put that other video as well, take it there, so that you can get to see the difference in the construction or the similarities in the construction. But let's move on to safety and health, and also the implementation of technology. Then we have another thing that we want you to do, an activity, just to test if you remember the parts of the building that we have here.
But I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before I knew. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew how much I missed. I know screw wish I knew.